My name is Tim McCoy, and I'm here with some friends that's near and dear to me. This is a podcast that's made by firefighters for firefighters, and this is real, this is raw, this is not scripted, it's just having raw conversations here. Patrick, got my producer over there. How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling good. We have been working on this for a while now. We're live recording from my office, as you can see here, but we got Chief Z in the house. Yeah, let's get this podcast started. How you feeling?
I feel good, man. Your week's been good?
Yeah, week's been pretty good.
And as Patrick just said, we've been working this on a while. This is a brand new podcast that we're doing. This is episode numero uno, the first one.
A lot of pressure.
The very first episode. And, this was actually Patrick's idea. So we have, what's a better guest than to have the big guy, the main man, the head honcho. We have Chief Z. Chief Z, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. First of all, love your show.
Appreciate it.
This is the first episode.
Appreciate it.
I wanted to lead off with that.
Yeah, there's no first time caller, long time. We don't have any of that.
You just talk about it for fruition. You know what's gonna happen.
Oh no, I know this is. In fact, I'm worried about losing you already.
Look,
you'll be picked up by some major network next. So
never. But we do appreciate you
absolutely
taking your time out today. Yeah. Before we get started, I just want to highlight the shirt of the day. The company of the day today. My shirt comes from the Bull City's very own Rescue Company 1. That's where I was assigned. Spent 5 years there. So I just want to highlight these guys. These are real solid members. They're actually out there training right now. They're doing forcible entry and VES. I was over there earlier getting some footage of them. So
they have a brand new unit sitting in the firehouse. Going to be back, put in service in a couple weeks.
I'm excited. I'm low key jealous because I've always wanted to drive and just more so ride and walk in. Walk-in's like the pinnacle.
Yeah.
So
it's super cool. It's a more effective unit. It's going to be able to deliver better service to the community, and I think it's going to be better for our members too. There's more room. The equipment will be stored in a way that's more deployable, a little more ergonomic. And right in the back is old school rescue companies. And as you know, I come from a rescue background, and we had walk-in rescues in the department I was with back in the day, and I only rode a walk-in one day ever, and I enjoyed the crap out of it, but I'm glad that we're bringing that back, and I'm looking forward to going in service.
So I, like you said, walk-in is like the ultimate thing. I've always wanted to do it, so I'm going to have to, when they get them, I'm going to have to go ride. We had one.
Just go jump on.
We had a reserved. Unfortunately, it
didn't last.
Totaled out, but as soon as it comes to service, I'm gonna go ride with them, and it'll give me opportunity to film like a day in the life type thing.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk about you. Just a little bit about your background. Sure. You kind of mentioned, we know you come from another department, but just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and then how you kind of got into the fire service in general.
Sure. Happily married. Have 2 kids. I like both of them today. We'll see about that. That's a day-to-day thing. But
I know how that is.
Both grown kids. One's a teacher and one's an aerospace engineer. And I don't actually understand what he does. He works for the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment in the Army and does stuff he can't talk about. So I don't even feel a need to even understand it.
Well, thank you for your service. That is awesome.
But I've been in the fire service since I was 18. My dad, I was one of the legacies to the volunteer side.
Okay.
My dad was a volunteer firefighter, fire chief, and I grew up in that. And I think you and I have talked about this before. When your mom or dad's a volunteer, you have a lot of exposure. But when your mom or dad is a career member, you don't have a ton of exposure because you don't go to work with them all the time. And but no, the bug caught me coming right out of college. I decided that I wanted to do that, and I joined the biggest fire department in the area for me, which was Fairfax County Fire, and did 25 years. And then finally realized where I was destined to be is the city of Durham, and I got here as fast as I could. So
like you said, so a lot of people don't know that volunteering is like the major part of firefighting in the United States. That's the largest part, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then you have municipalities and paid departments.
Yeah.
But like you said, like you started at 18. When did you start in Fairfax?
Just out of college, so I was probably 23. I actually worked for Loudoun County Fire and Fairfax City first, but those were only about 6 months apiece.
Okay.
Trying to get to Durham. Apparently, I was trying to get to Durham. Trying to get to Fairfax County because it's a huge department.
Yeah.
And it was probably the go-to place in the area I work. Just like I think we're the go-to place in the Triangle. You
Right.
know, if you want to be a real firefighter and you want to do the job, this is the place to do it.
I say in the state, but
Well, no, absolutely. I'll sell
But-
that all day.
Yeah. So you started off when you're young, like you said, you had already had an avenue into it. You had a.
Yeah.
I didn't have that.
Right,
Like most
right.
people, we go into it blindly, not knowing.
Yeah.
But it was.
Yeah, I heard your story of being the door slammed in your face.
Hey, listen, Khalil McFadden and Captain Burton.
Yeah.
They did me dirty. They I was almost lost.
Yeah.
And then
Captain Melvin saved
Captain
you.
Melvin
Yeah,
saved me.
Yeah.
So
Well,
he never let me he never lets me live it down to this day.
No, I met him in the pre-interview process. The union, the local, had me for lunch to sort of meet me when I was a finalist, and he sat right beside me, and actually really was a big factor in me wanting to come here.
I was going to ask why
why Durham?
Why Durham? How did you get here?
Sure. So I was at the point in my career where I was like, you know what, I want to be a fire chief somewhere. I don't really necessarily want to do it in the department I was in. It's huge. I enjoyed that, but it was going in ways I didn't feel comfortable. And I wanted to go somewhere where I can make a difference and help build the department. And I think we've done that over the past 6.5 years. But I was in two processes. Most people don't know this. I was in two processes at the same time. City of Durham, obviously, and Kauai, Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Yeah, they had a big rescue demand, and they were looking for a fire chief who had a rescue background because they actually have the second largest canyon in the U.S. behind the Grand Canyon.
Oh yeah, okay.
And so they lose hikers, and they do technical rescues all the time. And so I'm like, hey, that'd be pretty cool. They do a lot of that neato work, but the challenge there is it a real fire department? And so, interestingly, I was in their process first, didn't move very well, and then the city of Durham opened, and we had toured here, my wife and I had toured here with our kids about 8 years prior. Took a tour of the ballpark, drove to downtown, and really were like, hey, this is a cool little city, you know? And that was right at the start of that rebirth of the downtown here. And so I'm glad I got it then and not 2 or 3 years before that, pre-rebirth, right?
When I was in school, like downtown Durham was pretty much nothing. Like it was boarded up, a lot of boarded up. The Bulls helped revitalize that area and brought a lot of businesses. So you came at a great time,
right? Because now the place is cooking and it's really doing it. But so I said, well, let's apply. Let's see what happens. And obviously that situation worked out. But one fun thing that's one of my favorite parts of working here is that I'm driving down, and so the way this works is you have to sign a contract before they can release your name as the new fire chief. It's a council appointment. It's one of the few officers that the council actually says this is our person, right? And it's a big deal, and they won't release until you sign it, because if you change your mind and they already released the name, it's really hard on the second guy, right?
Yeah.
And as I'm driving down here, I'm driving down 95. I make the right-hand turn on 85. You know, and I'm on autopilot, right? I know where I'm going. I'm going down here to find an apartment, and this is my new life. And I get a call from Kauai, Hawaii on here. I hadn't heard from them in months. And they said, hey, we want to fly you out here for a final interview.
Really?
Yeah, this is absolutely true. And I went, listen, I'm right now driving. It was in my wife's Ford Explorer because we didn't know my pickup truck would make it.
Yeah.
And I said, I am right now driving to sign a contract with City of Durham. And Janet was her name. I remember the name. And she goes, well, she said the worst thing she could, if you change your mind, call me back. And I'm like, no. But, you know, my wife and I talked about it while I'm driving. And luckily that, you know, there's ample time during that drive to chat. Yeah. And she said it, I think even before I did, which is this is a real fire department that does real fire department things. And that was the deciding factor. But yeah.
See, the wife knows best.
No, she knows what is attractive to me on the fire department scale, right? You know, if you go to some fire departments, their main job is getting cats out of trees, right? And we have some people that we always make fun of. There's neighboring fire departments to get cats out of trees, right? But this department does the work every day, and that's what I'm so proud about, and that's why I'm so glad I came here, is that our members, Rescue One today, will do something really cool and make a difference in people's lives. And all of our companies, they do the same thing. And that's what I'm so proud about, and that's why I'm so glad I came here, is that our members, Rescue One today, will do something really cool and make a difference in people's lives. And all of our companies, will make a difference in people's lives today, or at least once or twice this week.
Yeah, I mean, so that's one of the great things. That's something that I tell people when I'm out trying to recruit them and talk to them. I'm like, listen, if you want to go somewhere where you're going to do the job and do it at the highest level, if you want to feel like a firefighter,
right.
There's no better place than Durham. There's only one other department in North Carolina that I would feel like competes with us, and I would say respectfully that's Charlotte.
Yeah, sure.
But outside of that, like I feel like we are hands down the best department in the state.
Yeah.
Our members want to train.
Yeah, absolutely.
They go to classes all the time.
Right.
They want to do the job.
Right.
We want to keep the tradition of being aggressive, keep our name, and we're pretty progressive in the aspect of just updating our equipment.
Right.
And you have a large part to do with that because I would say before I'm gonna get to here in a second.
Sure.
Let's talk about so you coming into it. Because I wanted to mention this and I didn't. I know from my side of things, there was a buzz in the department like, hey, Chief Zoldos, we know the union had met with you. We knew there was mixed reactions. Like people, a lot of people wanted a new chief because hey, you get a new chief, new energy. New direction. He's a rescue guy. He's going to be a fireman type. That was the thought. The other aspect was, hey, we don't know what we're going to get.
Right.
Because we had that before, right? Like we don't know what we're going to get.
Yeah.
And it could be bad.
Oh, yeah.
And so there was some uneasiness, but there was also like, hey, look, we met this guy. We feel like he's solid. That's what we were hearing from the union reps. And so we're like, we were glad to have you. And then you having a rescue background, like us, obviously wanting to, have the rescue truck and
bring back the program.
The program.
Yeah.
We thought it would help. And so that was a great thing. And ultimately, I think we were glad to have you. And like I said, there's been a lot of wins under your administration.
And I think there are a lot of promises kept where from apparatus to stations and facilities, you're seeing those changes, and where our members are proud of working here because it's gritty and it's tough. And again, our gear gets dirty because we're doing the job. We also, though, have gritty firehouses and dirty firehouses and beat up stuff. And that's our next step, right? We've flipped the apparatus. We have the best apparatus in the state.
We're getting new apparatuses. Yeah. It seems like every year we get a new group of apparatuses. And not
just new, but progressive and aggressive.
Right.
My favorite compliment someone gave us about the apparatus was they look mean. And I'm like, I'll take that.
That's another thing. That's another thing that you did. Like you set this scheme for our apparatuses, right? Like there's a Durham look now, right?
Yeah.
Like you got the bull on the front.
Yeah. But even past the graphics part, and I'm proud of that because our graphics reflect the community. It, above the door where the bucket doors where people sit in the back, it's the area served.
Yes, right.
And because we want people to identify, that's my fire engine. And when people identify that as their fire engine, they may pull over more often. They may give you some rhythm when you're trying to block a road. They're like, oh, that's my fire engine. I'll go around. It creates that better community feel. But on the front, we allowed each company to have their own motto because each company has its own identity. Rescue One has its own identity, right? Engine One has its own identity. Every company out there has its own identity, and we wanted to push that. Could have some company pride. We have pride in the patch.
Yeah.
But that other patch, the one on your other shoulder, we want you to have pride in that too. So we've done that. But also the units are more. They're more useful. They're more ergonomic. We've dropped everything lower because we're hiring all sizes of firefighter.
Right.
The day of the 6 foot, 220 pound firefighter is just not
the standard. Like
it's just not there anymore.
Big brawly type person.
Yeah,
right?
You're talking about that in the first episode, right? It's like or Captain Antoine was talking about, hey, everyone was this size. That's just not the case anymore.
Right.
And we do need different size. I'll tell you who needs it the most is rescue. You in tech rescue, confined spaces, trench
small
calls,
spaces.
We
Absolutely.
need strong. We need smart and strong, but they can come in different packages.
Right.
And our apparatus reflects that. And it doesn't reflect it in a bad way. I think it makes the unit more aggressive. It's more efficient. And I'm very proud, but we're working on those other things, and stations are going to be our next thing in front of the council. Believe in June 18, our facility study will be there. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a study of all of our facilities, and then come up. We have a plan, but it'll back our plan with the city council on how to replace our firehouses that are aging or obsolete.
Yeah.
And so we're looking forward to that.
So, like you said, the hosts, and it's not just you. But this is something that you put in place. The committees, getting committees formed. So we have a ladder committee. We got an engine committee. We got committees for pretty much a lot of things that we do.
Station design.
Station design, right? So and it's our committees putting in the work and doing the research and the drop hose beds, the shorter trucks, all the hose coming off the bat to make sure we're pulling past the address. That's stuff that we hadn't done in the past. Even the small things as far as unit identification, which is big as far as just keeping people happy. Keeping the energy up in the department. And then you came in and you did something that we hadn't done in a while, which was saying, hey, we're going to allow you guys to have leathers, which is huge in the firefighter culture, huge. So those are like some of the wins that you were able to bring and that were great. But what about the losses? What are some challenges or losses that you had?
Sure. I think pay and benefits are obviously our number one. We sell the sexy part of firefighting here because we do the job every day. We sell the gritty, but at times, and as our head recruiter, it comes down to money. There are people that are going to look other places when they're trying to provide for their families. So we made some gains last year. I think you've heard from me is that we need to look at this every 2 years to make sure that we're on top of our game. Losing a firefighter is unbelievably expensive, but also it hurts you long term because that's where our next captain's coming from. That's our next drivers, our next captains, our next battalion chiefs. If we lose people in their 5 to 10 year range, we're really losing our future. So investing in them, pay and benefits. I think our pay is right where it probably needs to be. I'd like to be number one, in the area. You've heard me say this. I want our people paid as if they play in the NFL because that amuses you for a couple hours on Sunday, but when we actually have our games, it matters to someone in real life. And, if even I can get them practice squad pay, that'd be good, right? But benefits-wise, I'd like to see us get a little bit better. We're working on all those things, but I think those are not losses, but they're today's challenges.
Just challenges, yeah.
I think how slow it has been to rebuild fire stations and get rid of our obsolete ones and build modern firehouses. It is so slow. We've been really successful in our CIP, capital improvement projects, capital plan, but projects within that. And we've been relatively successful in the budget, adding to it every year so that we can have better gear. Our gear is better than when I started and those sort of things. But there's still some challenges. And a lot of it, what people, pennies, or policy, right, are the things. And the pennies are what hurt us a lot because we're trying to build a fire department, a modern, aggressive fire department, really not from scratch, but we weren't supported years ago. As I like to remind people, we have a 30-year CIP because we can smartly plan out our world for 50 years because firehouses are 50-year investments. And if someone did this 30 years ago, I wouldn't have to do it. We'd be just in the plan and it'd be easy. But we're starting from scratch on a lot of this. Our stations are old, they're fallen down, and they don't project the type of fire rescue, EMS power that we need it to do to protect people properly. So, but yeah, that's one of the biggest challenges. Losses, I don't know. I don't know that there's losses as much as to degrees. Like, I think the pay increase was great. I wish it had been higher. I think the benefits that the city tries to improve each year is great, but I wish they'd be a little bit better. Cancer testing is something that we push all the time, and we want to be aggressive at that. But we also we want to be where a member comes here because they want the work, but also because they feel comfortable and safe. And the comfortable and safe part is probably one of the losses. I'm just not there yet. New firehouses, better testing, better benefits are part of that process. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I think a lot of the benefits would definitely be a major win on the recruitment side as well because there's I think there's areas we can improve. Like you said, we're ahead of, in some departments we're ahead. The crew at Station 4 that developed the whole cancer plan and then washing down after the fire. I think the
QM1 program, the quartermaster program, is relatively revolutionary. We stole the idea from in Texas. I'm not gonna be able to pull them right now, but
I seen the video and I was
yeah.
like, oh, it's another department. I didn't even know other departments were doing this.
Yeah, so
when I seen it,
I think we're the second. We did see a press release on the same type of program, but a little not as robust as ours by a smaller department, and I don't remember where that was, but that was only a week ago. So I'd say we're probably number 2 in getting this thing out there, but.
When I first heard it, I'm gonna be honest. When I first heard it, I was like,
seems sketchy. Yeah.
You want us to change clothes on scene? Like
Right,
it was just like,
right.
it just seemed like a hassle. I was like, I don't know how this is gonna work. We gotta wait for them to come here.
Yeah.
And then they gotta load all the spare gear, find the people's totes.
Yeah.
Y'all have it organized. I will say that. Currently, I'm not in field, so I don't know how it's working out. But
so
just hearing it, I was like, I don't know if this is gonna work. This sounds
So we've been doing
ridiculous.
it since I believe the beginning of February, and we were doing it with a van that I think was actually made during the Korean War, and it has that old-fashioned.
It was definitely the light bar,
huge
the big light bar, yeah.
like from Chips, right?
It probably didn't have an AC or nothing in it. It was like
and
unpleasant.
But like a lot of things in Durham, that gritty, figuring it out, making it happen, and just pushing forward. And Chief Cole, this became his baby, and he got it done. Now we have a new van for it. It's wrapped. It's waiting on its emergency lights, and I think its radio. It's not going to respond like Code 3 responds, but we need to have lights and floodlights on it so when it's on scene, it's safe.
Yeah.
That'll be done in the next week or so, and then we are going to press release that and hopefully share that with a lot of people, because I do think that's going to be a way to attract people to the job. We're going to take care of you on scene. You're going home in clean gear. So you've heard clean cab concept.
Yes.
And the problem with a lot of departments' clean cab concept, this is my opinion, but I think we're right on this, is that to do clean cab, a lot of departments have taken your gear out of the cab, right? Taking gear and SCBA out of the cab. And SCBA is still the piece that we haven't figured out how to clean it efficiently 100% on scene, right? We're cleaning it. We're just not getting it to the levels we need, like new clean gear is. But when you take the gear out of the cab, you also reduce our efficiency on scene.
Slows you down.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it was that balance of how do we protect our people but still accomplish mission. Well, the best way to protect your people is never go on a call, and we're not going to do that, right? So there's a risk benefit with everything we do in the fire service, and we want to make sure we're doing the right risk for the right benefit. So clean cab was sort of a non-starter because we were struggling with how do you put gear in compartments, right? So this program is the answer, because when you leave the fire ground, you are cleaner because you're going to wipe yourself down a little bit. Your gear is clean from the extractors right over here. And when you put it back in the cab, the only thing that's going back in the cab that's dirty at all is your SCBA. Now, there are ways to clean SCBAs that are a little more industrial style, and we can do that on an annual basis, but there's nothing better on scene yet. So we're gonna scrub them down on scene, but when we go back in service, we're gonna keep that cab cleaner than we ever have for this program.
And so you think this is the most efficient way of doing it right now?
I think at the moment, we were struggling. Some of our neighbors have extractors, and those are the wash machines for gear in each station. And what we were struggling with is, one, unbelievably expensive,
right,
to do that, and two, you've got people. So Bobby Z, firefighter, right? When I was 23, 24, do I know how to take care of this gear, or am I just throwing it in so it comes out clean because I'm told to? And having someone who's not a professional with the gear cleaning is going to lose the gear's lifespan, but also it's conceivable that somebody hurts it, doesn't even know, and puts it on, gets hurt on scene. So this way, we've got our professionals at the gear cleaning center. They're doing the gear cleaning, and you're getting it at point of contact in the field. So it's so far it's working. We know we ran into some, guys didn't want to have socks on some of our streets because, I don't want to, I don't want to step on stuff.
Yeah, whatever.
And so we've come up with some solutions, laying down a salvage cover, doing those sort of things to make sure we protect our people. But I think you'll see this being the way to do business. And we already have several departments in North Carolina that have contacted us to go, hey, how do you do this? So
I know from I know there's been some people that said, hey, it would just be easier to get, like you said, the gear cleaners in each station. Again, that's expensive.
Yeah.
Or either like within a battalion, you have one single station where you can go to. I understand that is expensive. Like most things, like we think in the fire department, from a firefighter standpoint, we see things and we problem solve.
Right. Right.
But a lot of times, we don't understand what you guys are up against.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that myself, like, because I was very critical of administrations in the
yeah.
past, because I was
Yeah.
like, yo, like, this is simple. Like, why don't we have this position? Like,
Well,
what-
and we wanted extractors, right? I mean, that was the plan, is to buy extractors for every station. It takes up space. You have to build a pad, plumbing, the whole thing. And it was going to cost us 50 or so thousand per house to put them in. So, times 19 houses, call it 20, you're talking a lot of money for that. And so this is a more efficient way, but also the onus isn't on the member anymore. The onus is on the fire department to produce that gear at point of contact, which is at the operational, at the firefight. And so you get done the fire, you come out, you go through a decon, because we want to do, a gross decon of the member, of our gear and our member. We're still going to clean that gear, just wipe it down, so that when you take it off, you're not exposing yourself to all of that. We're only doing it when you're done. So we're not going to give you clean gear and then you're going to go back in and do another round. We're doing it when you're done, and then you're going home. And so from that second, your gear is clean. We want you to shower within the hour, is the rule. We want you to get to the firehouse and get in the shower to get all those particulates off you and try to clean yourself as best you can. But the second you leave the scene, you've got gear that's ready to go. And you're not jumping back in. And, you have enough time on, I certainly have enough time on, where running back-to-back calls was the thing.
Yeah, so I mean, and again, like, it's just, those are things that we don't think about it. I think from a firefighter standpoint, again, we blame a lot of stuff on admin, when really a lot of stuff deals with money, right?
Oh, yeah,
and
sure.
then you have a boss, and you guys have people you have to answer to, right? So
Right.
it's not always as simple as, yo, this is a simple problem, we should fix it. I saw that when I was in the recruitment committee.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
there were things that we wanted to go push forward, but it wasn't you guys knocking it. It was necessarily the people above you that was like, hey, either don't have the money or whatever the case may be, we can't do it, right?
Right. And I mean, the budget is a challenge every year, because we've got competing concerns of the hazmat team, the tech rescue team, rescue company, engines, ladders, EMS, the whole thing. And we have to make those decisions. Now, we've increased our budget substantially over the years to provide more options for us to fund. Because one of my biggest complaints about working for Durham, and everyone's heard this, is that I can't meet the cutting edge of anything because I'd never have extra money. Like, I can't go, hey, you know what, drones as first responder. I want to do drones as a first responder. Super crazy technology. It'll allow us to have reconnaissance before you get there in a fire truck. This is a great idea. It's going to be like a 3-year process for me to get that funded, and it's a killer. So good ideas, extractors in the firehouse or whatever, or even this program. This program we had to, we're doing it with light duty personnel. We're doing it in innovative ways that are not forever sustainable, but it shows proof of concept and allows us to sort of move the ball forward. But we're going to be doing it. We didn't get funded for those positions, for the quartermaster position, so we're going to continue to do it with light duty personnel. Now, that's an aggressive way of doing it. Usually light duty don't work 24-hour shifts, but we're taking that extra step, a little exposure, because we think it's going to give us a better product for our people at the end. So no, you're right. There's a lot of needs and a lot of competing needs in the fire department, but all of it is aimed at providing better service to the community and taking care of our members. Those are the two focuses of what we do. Everything that we do should be based on those two things: the service we provide and taking care of the people that provide that service. And I think we do that relatively well. But also, there's sometimes where we just can't share it. We can't share, like, the discussions with the city manager about, like, hey, can't do this, but I can do this. Because, he's asking for us to trust his decision making, and we do that. So
I think that's a lot of frustration when it comes to us in the field, is just sometimes it just feels like there's a loss of communication.
Well, yeah, you gotta, where I bristled that a little bit is always, I put out a Sunday newsletter every Sunday, and
Z-mail.
Yeah, and like that. And I talk about the budget about 30 times a year. And so I pretty much release everything I know when I know it, other than, if a council member says, hey, I'm going to work on this, I'm not sharing that, because this is something that they, they're trusting me to have their back on and to give them some patience and grace. But the second I know about something with the budget, if it's locked in, I share it, And so you all hear everything from, this is what I'm asking for, to this is what has been partially approved, this is what's been fully approved. There's not a lot more to it than that. other than me trying to lobby as best I can.
And firefighters gonna do what firefighters do.
Oh,
And
yeah,
we're always gonna find something that we're not pleased
And I was
with.
in those shoes too.
And I'm not saying you're perfect, but I'm not saying we're perfect either. Like, it's always something that we struggle with. Now, we talked about a lot of innovative stuff, as far as the trucks and stuff. And going on that truck thing, have you ever seen that clip? I think Hannibal Buress is
Hannibal Buress,
the fire SUV.
Yeah.
Now you guys took it to another level. He said, "I want to be a firefighter, but I just want to, not because I want to be a fire. I want to drive the fire SUV."
Fire SUV.
And it was a whole little joke, right? If you've never seen it, Hannibal Buress fire SUV on YouTube, check it out. It's a funny bit. But you guys took it a little bit further, and now you have fire. Like you have a Challenger,
Fire Challenger,
a Fire Challenger, and Chief Adnuzzi has a Mustang or
Mach-E.
a Mach-E, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's on that initiative as far as going green, right? That's where
his is from.
Yep.
Mine is a little more complex.
How did you get to the Challenger?
Right.
And there was a lot of table talk when you got your Challenger.
Oh yeah. I paid for it. I want that.
Well, that was one thing.
Yeah.
That was one thing. But the other thing was, it's a V6 or V8?
It's the 6. I know.
Why the V6?
Because I'm married.
Okay, all right. I'm not going to argue with that. I'm not going to argue that. But why did you decide to Challenger?
So what happened was, in the middle of COVID, we started a new position called EMS supervisor. So it was an EMS trainer that would help us increase our EMS training, but also provide some oversight on scene so that we could see where our training needs are. Very similar to, we have that FD20 position, which is the fire trainer. And the fire trainer goes to fires, helps out at the fire, but also analyzes how we're doing. We wanted the EMS trainer to do that exact thing, and EMS supervisor seemed to be the right position for it, because I wanted our partners in Durham County EMS to know this person we're trusting to oversee our process. And we got all of it done. It was in the middle of COVID, so I think this is 2020. And we had money for a vehicle, but Fleet said, "Hey, you got money for it. We just can't buy it. There's nothing on any lot right now. It's the middle of COVID." And I said, "Well, come on. You got to be able to do something." He said, "I'm telling you, there's just nothing. If you can find something, you can have it." Mm-hmm. Well, we look around. We can't find any vehicles. So I gave them mine. So that used to be the fire chief car. Like, underneath where it says EMS supervisor, you say fire chief, and we scratch that off or whatever you do. And I gave it to him, and I'll be honest, I thought I got the juice to push Fleet to get me a cop car or something that I could paint red and make it the fire chief's car. And I went back to Fleet and said, "Okay, I gave him mine, so what can we do for me? Because I don't have the same needs. I don't need an SUV. I just need like it could be the police. Like, most of the cars we had at the time were police-looking cars.
Yeah.
They were Chargers.
Chargers.
So if I can get a red Charger, I'm happy. I just don't want anything white or blue or anything that looks like a cop car." And he's like, "I can't hook you." And I was a little shocked by that. So I outmaneuvered myself in this.
Now you don't have a vehicle.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
If you remember, at the time, a 1999 F-250. And I had a little red blinky light on the dash. And that's all I had for about 6 months. And yeah. So spoke to the city. A friend of mine's the chief of the Wilson Fire Department, Albert Alston, great dude. And it was one of the people that I reached out to a couple times to go, "Hey man, I'm new to North Carolina. How do we do this?" He bought his own car, and North Carolina law allows for fire chiefs and police chiefs to outfit their personal car with lights, sirens, radios, the whole thing. It blew my mind. Virginia doesn't allow that, which is where I came from. And he said, yeah, they did it as part of his contract with the city, and he gets a stipend for it. So I spoke to city management, and they said, "Yeah, we'll do this because we need to right now. I don't know we're going to do this forever." And I'm like, "Well, my F-250 is not going to make it. It's 20-some years old." So I looked out for a car, and I actually spoke to some members. I'm like, "Hey, what would be a cool car that would be good for recruitment, but also that is response able?" So I wanted something that somebody out there uses for response, but I don't want it to be a police car. Like, that really would bother me, because I don't want to look like a police officer, even if it's red.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a bad look for us. And so we looked around at what was being used. So the Dodge Durango was out there. And when I talk about being already used, that means there's red lights and sirens built for it, right? Okay. Just to make it easier. And the Durango, the Ford F-150, there's a whole bunch of cars out there. The Charger, And then I stumbled onto there's a couple of distant states that use the Challenger as their state trooper car. And I went, ooh, okay, that's different. And there's a lot of Challengers here in the city. It's a cool car in the city of Durham. So I'll tell you one thing I did not understand when I picked the lights from a catalog, the siren from a catalog, right? I'm like, I want to do this, 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 this. So I spoke to the outfitter, and who's a friend, and I'm like, I want to do this, this. I had no idea what this thing would cost. And it shocked me at the cost to put lights and siren on a modern car. I thought we're talking, $1,000. It was way, way, way higher than that. And so that's why that car, I tell you, I still get looks on scene. People go, I get a lot of no ways, or you got to be kidding me, and stuff like that.
Who's this guy pulling up?
Yeah. Well, and the police use Challengers too, and that's why mine's red, to try to draw that line.
So I didn't know that, right? So one of my friends hit me up. They was like, or they posted a post like, Durham PD is pulling people in Challengers.
Right.
And it's a Challenger look just like yours.
Just like mine.
And I said, no, that's the fire chief.
Right.
And I'm debating with them. I was like, no, that is our chief's car. Maybe this person's broke down and our chief was just checking on them.
Right.
It was like, no, it's a cop car. I was like, nah, I didn't know.
Theirs is actually a nicer model.
Really?
Mine's
Okay.
the SXT, the lowest model. And honestly, it's fine for what it does. It does have that sport mode, which, narrows the gearing a little bit, and it's quick. I mean, it is definitely a quick car. If I responded every single day, no, we definitely want the V8 or one of the RT models or something like that. But for what it does, it's exactly what I need. It's noticeable enough when the red lights are on that people are like, oh, I will pull over. But it's not so noticeable that people, because it's mine. Like, I drive it to the store. I drive it to, the Durham Bulls games. And
you don't have people slowing down.
Every once in a while, and then I think they look, and because you can somewhat see the red lights, but you don't really see them. But again, my lights are all red. And so when the police, theirs is red and blue. So it's definitely different. And theirs is a different model. Theirs is a higher model.
I want to say Chief Courier, he had, your predecessor.
Yeah.
He had the Charger.
Right.
And he would complain like, man, like going home, going to Apex, everybody's always like checking up. And I'm like, he's like, I just want them to get out my way.
There's a bunch of cars that look just like mine in the city. It's got the black top package, which means it has black wheels and a black spoiler. There's 2 or 3 others that look identical to it. So I think because you see that car relatively often, no one slows down for me, which is good. I don't want to, impede traffic. And I also don't want people to think I'm a police officer. I think there is something, very proud to be in the fire service. I love what we do. And I love what the police do. But I don't want people to mistake me for a police officer. Right. And the uniform, the radio, that does lead towards
especially
it,
when you first came on, it was a big ordeal with police, and there was a lot of stuff going on with police, and they kind of had a target on their back to say back then. So
yeah, I mean, it was difficult. I think it's still difficult to be a police officer in today's world.
Oh yeah, of course.
Everything they do is examined in slow motion after they're done. And when you've probably heard me at critiques, we talk about options available to you at the time of decision, right? And I don't want to watch a fireground in slow motion because it's not fair to you. Like, why'd you park here? Well, I parked here because when I was driving in, there was a kid with a bike, and there was this car here, and that's real life, and it's at real life speed. Just like when you look at a football player for targeting, right? They slow it down.
And you're like, it's so obvious.
And it lasted 1/100th of a second, right? And it's just so hard for that person to make that decision while they're in the air, right? And the same thing goes with the fire department, but I think police have a really hard position because they play their body cam back from all these angles, and it's really hard on them to make those type of decisions. So anyway, I didn't want it to look like a police officer. I live right in the downtown, and I don't want people thinking it's a cop car sitting in my driveway at all times. Although, there's probably with some of the crime, I'd probably be good to have a cop car sitting in my driveway, but no, that's why that car, it is considered the best fire chief's car in the state. Albert Alston and I are neck and neck. He has a Charger, all black with black interior, and his is pretty cool looking. But mine is really bargain basement. But I do like taking it to scenes. I do like to go see what we do.
It's a sharp looking car. I haven't seen another chief vehicle like that. Now, we have a moment in the show where we like to talk about like just memorable calls or things. oftentimes I get a question like, what's the worst call you ever been on? And
yeah.
I always hate that question because I'm like, I've been on a lot of calls.
My last one.
It's so hard to say what is the worst one. But like, I know you were a rescue guy and you did USAR.
Yeah.
So like, what is something that you remember either from that or firefighting? Like for me, when it comes to USAR, one of the things that I remember the most was like my first. You always remember your first fire, first cardiac arrest. Like, so my first USAR call, like real deployment. Yeah. We got deployed to ConAgra in Raleigh. Okay. The Slim Jim plant. It was an explosion. Yeah. So we were on duty. I remember being lunchtime, we were watching news, and we get a call. I believe Chief Robert was the one that called. It was like, hey, you guys get on your truck to take engine 7, which is Quint 7, up to ConAgra. So we're figuring out. We don't really know what all's going on other than that there was an explosion. And I just remember that call just because of one, we got there. My thought always was like, yo, I thought it was gonna be like a fire scene. We're gonna get there, rush, go into it. We're gonna make grabs, whatever the case may be. Totally different world, right? So now we're on this call and they're like, hey, set up the boo. And I'm like, the boo? Nobody wants to set up the base operation.
Heroes. We gotta get in the game.
Nobody wants to set up base operation. If you know, the boo's base operations is this big setup, takes a long time to do. Nobody wants to do that. It's the part that sucks. But
I'm out.
But while we're doing that though, and mind you, we're seeing this building's destroyed. There's walls on cars, cars crushed. We're like, that's where we need to be at. But then it's like this thunderstorm that comes. And we're dodging lightning. Like we have these metal rods setting up this boo. And we're dodging lightning, and we're like, oh man, this is terrible. And so I remember that the storm that ensued during that call. But I also remember there was when Carrie was in USAR Task Force 8. I remember there was this girl that worked for Carrie, and she had red hair. I just know she had red hair, color red. And once I found out she was the one managing personnel, like who goes in, who goes out. I was in her ear the whole time. I was like, look, we're here, we're ready. And it was a long process. We probably got there at 1 o'clock. We were there until shift change. We swapped out, but at 5 a.m. after being up all night and just waiting for our turn, they're like, go inside. And I'll just never forget when I went inside, the smell of ammonia and just Slim Jims everywhere. And of course in that call there was some people that ended up losing their lives during that incident, but I just, for a long time, I didn't eat Slim Jims. I was done with Slim Jims for a while. Just seeing them everywhere. But,
and you're going to relate that to a disaster, you know.
But you were in USAR with Fairfax, right? I'm sure. But y'all went over across the pond and stuff right?
So I was fortunate enough to be deployed 11 times, and my first deployment was to the embassy bombing in Kenya.
Okay.
And so if you remember back to 1998, there were two embassies bombed the same day. I think that one was Tanzania, if I remember right, just north of Kenya. I hope I'm right on that. But you talk about the wait part. It's funny you brought back that memory. Our flight was like 26 hours.
Sheesh.
And we were in a C5, an Air Force C5, and we're flying there, and I'm thinking we're losing an entire day, right? And then we get there, and we don't have transport. We had some, because we fly with our own trucks, but not enough for personnel and some of the other equipment. So we had to get some other team to help us out to get transport to the embassy, and it was just, we're not in the fire service. It's 90 seconds out the door, gone. And I'm helping someone immediately. I don't worry about logistics because logistics already been set up. The fire truck is my logistics, right? If I don't have it on there, we'll call other companies. USAR is a different world, and especially international or interstate USAR. When North Carolina Task Force 8, our task force, goes out of state, you got to start worrying about, how do I make this happen? And the reason we set up the boo first, and I, as a young rescue guy, hated that too. Like, hey, rescue squad 1 and 2, go out the door, rescue 3 and 4, set up the boo, and you're like, I need to be on 1 and 2, And it used to drive you nuts because you wanted to go out there and do it. That's what I signed up for. But you set up the base of operations, the boo, because if something goes wrong, someone gets hurt, your team doctors, your team medics need a place to work. And when you're overseas, one of the golden rules is you never wanted to put any requirements on the economy, meaning if one of our people gets hurt, we shouldn't take them to a local hospital. That local hospital's busy
Right.
with a disaster.
Right.
You shouldn't have to bring food, or you shouldn't have to demand food and water off the economy, because the people that are affected by the earthquake, whatever it is, need that food and water, not us, right? And their economy is not designed for all these extra rescue teams showing up. So we try to do a nice job of making sure that we don't bring the economy down that we go into. But yeah, Kenny was my first one. I'd been on the rescue team only a few months, and my wife was 9 months pregnant when I went. And I remember being at and you know this, the point of departure, right? Like, everyone's meeting up, you're trying to see if you're on the roster, like, you know that feeling, right?
Yeah.
That butterfly in your tummy, and like they hand out the roster, your name's on it, like, oh, amen, right? I'm gonna get to go help. And I remember my wife's there, and she is 9 months pregnant, and I go, what do you want me to do? And I mean, she rode with me, so clearly there was the expectation I was going. And I sort of thought I wouldn't be rostered, you know, and I was relatively new to the team, and she's like, listen, I can have this baby without you, but you've been rostered, you should go. It's your responsibility. And I'm like, are you sure about that? Because I thought, this is probably a trap, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, I'd already built up the nursery, I'd already done everything. We'd painted the room. It was perfect. She was ready. And my daughter was born just a couple days after I got back. So it worked out.
Oh, that worked out good.
But it was a nervous thing. And back then, and I like this rule, you weren't allowed to take cell phones or anything else with you, because we wanted mission focused. So if something happens to your family, or, you know, your wife has a child, the team would tell you, but we didn't want you worried about, oh my God, who's mowing my lawn? Or I hope my son does okay on this test.
Yeah.
Because we wanted mission focused. But yeah, I mean, I was very blessed to be able to serve for 11, most of which were international. I was a 9/11 responder to the Pentagon. Almost every team but one, if I remember right, was deployed on 9/11, except for California 2, which is LA. And LA was the other international team is why. And we can't have both qualified international teams, you know, sucked in. We have to have one to be able to go, you know, overseas. But, you know, I think all of those meant a lot, because you're helping people who really needed help. It's like the fire service every day, but I've been on 2 missions to Haiti, and the Haitians needed help. They need help every day. And you insult the country with, you know, the first one was for a school collapse with just hundreds of kids trapped. And then the second one was obviously that monster earthquake in 2011, I think it was, 2010.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah, one of the biggest ever. And, you know, you probably have a death toll. I don't think they'll ever release real numbers, because they probably don't know. But probably near 500,000 people. You know, probably one of the worst disasters ever. And we made 16 rescues. And if you think about it, that's a drop in the bucket. But it's 16 families, 16 lives that were changed, 16 families that were changed. And it's probably the most ever made. Like, not that we do it for the record books, but I'm very proud, and I was the task force leader then, to get to go over. And we actually sent 2 teams, and we sort of merged and became one big team. But those are memorable. I'll tell you, though, here, obviously the gas explosion downtown was extremely memorable. This department does great things every day, and sometimes we respond to major incidents that are much more seen, much more public. But a house fire is devastating to a family. You know, the gas explosion was devastating to a lot of families, but house fires are devastating. You know, medical calls are devastating, and we make that difference every day. But there's a lot of ones that are memorable. You know, the one I will mention, firefighters only tell 2 different types of stories. It's when other people do great stuff, or when you screw up, right?
Oh yeah, that's a fact.
Oh, 100%. And
fact.
so we don't tell a lot of stories where we win, right? Because it's just weird, and it's not a fire department sort of thing. So a lot of the ones you tell on yourself. So I'll tell one on myself.
All right.
And in 2010 or 2011, somewhere around there, we went to Ofunatu, Japan for the earthquake and tsunami. I think most people remember that because there was a nuclear plant right there that they were afraid was leaking or leaching nuclear radiation. And we were working north of that in sort of the mountain area, which is really cold, much colder than I expected I don't remember what time of the year, but it just didn't seem like it was going to be really cold there. But so we were working this town, I think it's a town technically, called Ufunatu. And before we go, we get deployed on any mission, the State Department gives us a cultural brief. It's a great idea. It's so you don't go and say anything that would offend people that may seem normal in American culture, but would be offensive in other cultures.
Right.
And it's a big deal. And, you know, I remember, I think I'm right on this, Kenya, you're not allowed to take a picture with the Kenyan flag. It seemed as offensive. So, okay, that's great, because you know the first thing we're going to do when we fly into Kenya is take a picture with probably a Kenyan flag behind us. And knowing those rules, those norms, those cultural differences is important, because we don't want to offend people when we're there.
Right.
And the one lecture they gave, and especially to the task force leaders, and I was one of the 2 task force leaders, was when someone from Japan gives you their business card, they're giving part of themselves, and they're going to do it with 2 hands, and you receive it with 2 hands, and then you put it somewhere that shows you respect for that person. You don't fold it up, you don't slam it into a pocket. You know, you either put it like in a billfold or you put it in your pocket, but you show respect. And I got it, because you know and they said it's a formal event, and we want to go to work. We don't even want to say hi. We just want to go straight to the building, start our searches, and make some rescues. But this is a big deal. And so we rolled into Funatu, and we were actually 3 teams together at the time. I was the ranking person. They're the English team, so UK Task Force 1, LA's team, LA County's team, which is USA Team 2, and then USA Team 1. I don't remember that they were Team 2 sometimes. It's hard to remember who's behind you, right? But so it's USA Team 1, USA Team 2, and the UK Team 1 are all together. And I get off as the leader of this sort of advanced team to meet the mayor. And I have a fun picture of right when this happened. I'm glad I don't have a video of it, but the mayor comes up and he's introduced to me, and there's a translator who's translating it. And, you know, I explained to him, I'm here to help, and I've got, you know, the USA Team 1 and 2, I've got UK Team 1, we're ready to go to work, just tell us what areas to work. And he comes up, he bows, he hands me his card, and I do just like I was taught. I take it with 2 hands. Now I'm wearing, this is for to understand why this happened, I'm wearing a rescue coat. So, you know, it looks like a bunker coat, looks like that coat, but there's no liner to it really. But it's got big cuffs. In my defense, it has these big cuffs. So I take the card and I do the bow and I say thank you. His assistant or member of his council, I don't know who it was, reaches forward to shake hands, which I was told we don't do. Like, we're not shaking hands until the card is done. Well, I haven't had time to put this anywhere, so I hold it in my left hand and I go to shake, and the cuff of my coat hits the card and it spirals down. And I'm telling you, it fell down in slow motion. It went, yeah, you know the little helicopter things that fall off trees? Yeah. It was like 4 times how slow that goes. And I'm like, no, and you heard people behind me go, and this thing hits the ground, and I am mortified. And you know rescuers. They are dying.
You never let you live it down.
No.
What was their reaction?
So the reaction was priceless. I go to reach for it, and he stops me. He does the entire ceremony over. And you know that's killing us.
You got to reset.
Right. The entire ceremony starts over. He gets a card, and he didn't even hold his cards. It came from his assistant. His assistant hands him a new card. He comes over and does the entire ceremony again, and I am mortified.
You didn't miss the mark this time.
Oh, no. It was, yes, thank you, you know. And it was just one of those funny things that culturally was a very big deal, because he's giving part of himself to you. And he knew I didn't drop it on purpose. It was that I was reaching to shake hands. But yeah, those sort of things are interspersed with, as we do disasters or we respond to calls, there has to be some sort of levity in what we do. And I'm not talking about gallows humor, but like, if you go to 15 calls in a day and there's death and destruction in all 15, you have to come home and decompress a little bit. So I think this gave our rescuers a little moment of decompression at my expense.
Well, so something that me and Captain Burton talked about was a lot of times we decompress by just cracking jokes. We're not cracking jokes at the situation, but we crack jokes just to help. It's our way of decompressing. And some people are like, well, how can you laugh during such a serious situation? We're just like, man, you got to find a way to get it out. And a lot of times, again, it's never towards the situation. It's always like we find something else, some type of humor in whatever we're doing, and just so we can get over that hump. Because a lot of times you leave one call and then you might have a cardiac arrest, and now you have subjects pinned, or you might have someone who was shot, and now so you're constantly dealing with trauma, and go back to what you're
Sure.
saying with police, kind of same thing with police. Like, you're constantly going to calls and all the time, and then you just, at some point it implodes, or some point you just
I mean, I like to liken it to a surgeon, right? I want my surgeon to care about me, but I don't want him wringing his hands and being anxious over my survival. I want him to be a professional and handle it. And if during that he's, if what makes him be more effective is listening to classical music and telling a couple dad jokes, I don't care. I'm out anyway, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the fire service, you see what we do, and sometimes people are like, whoa, those guys are smiling, and we're at a structure fire and someone just lost their home. And I'm very aware of that. Like, I don't like us taking pictures in front of the house other than training pictures. Like, I think we should take, but we got to remember that it is someone's worst day of their life, right? And that's one of the reasons I want us to do things like SIOC, right? Where we get out in the community and we meet people, not when they're having the biggest tragedy of their life, is meet us, learn us, come to the firehouse and learn about us, let us learn about you, so that when we stop by during the worst day of your life, it's a friend helping you, not just someone. And I think we'll get more grace then when people see us, but there's a cumulative effect, and behavioral health has shown there's a cumulative effect to the trauma that our people see every single day. And some of it is getting back to the firehouse, shutting the door, and playing a game or watching a movie or
ragging on each other. Stuff like that.
Wearing each other out. There's something magical about that.
So Captain Shazo, I never forget retired Captain Shazo. Shout out to you. One of the biggest lessons he taught me was, like, one day, we're firefighters, so we want to do the job. We don't want anybody to lose their valuables or anybody to, like, we're not wishing bad on anybody. But we do all this training, and we
want to use our skills.
We want to use our skills.
Sure.
So we get, like, we had went through a dry spell on Engine 7 for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And then we finally get this massive fire, and, like, I never forget afterwards, I'm like high-fiving, like, yeah. Like, in front of these people.
Right.
And Captain Chase was like, yo, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, we're just happy. He's like, I understand you're happy, but you gotta have a level of professionalism, because this is their worst day, and it looks bad in front of them.
Absolutely.
Right. And it's not anything that we were purposely trying to do. We weren't happy their place burned down.
No.
It was just,
but you're proud of the skills and the work that you did.
Yeah.
And we should be able to do that. But that's why I said, get back to the fire with the doors shut.
Yeah.
And I want our people to celebrate great work. And every week in my Z-mail, I've never heard it called that before. I like that. Thank you.
You never heard Z-mail?
Never heard it called that.
Oh, that's Wiley though. Everybody calls it Z-mail.
That's great. I have never heard that.
Z-mail, yeah.
Because I always go, is it a newsletter? Is it an email? I don't know what the heck to call it. But I do a thing called Strong Work every week, right?
Yeah.
Where I highlight somebody and I try to link it back. I link it back to our mission, vision, and values of the department. And that's usually pretty easy because our people do great work and so forth. But, there's a lot of things our people do that are great, but sometimes the time to acknowledge that isn't right at the fireground, right?
Yeah.
Like the tailboard. We do a tailboard critique. If people have never seen that, afterwards you're going to see the officers or sometimes the whole crews, all the crews come over, and we're going to tear apart how we did. And we're not going from horrible. We're not going from an F to a C. We're trying to go from an A minus to an A plus, right? Or an A to an A plus. And we try to break it down there on the fireground while we're still fresh in our minds and so forth. And those are things to make our job better. And at times, you'll hear us like, hey, so-and-so tripped over the hose right there, and you'll hear some chuckles or stuff like that. But that's because we're trying to, again, decompress a little bit, but also talk about how to make us even better. And those things are visible to the public. We've had people come over and go, hey, what are you guys doing? And, we're trying, I like to use the Blue Angels thing, right? We've watched the Blue Angels movie, and these guys are inches apart, and it looks perfect to the customer, right? To the client, to the viewer, and they're hammering each other.
They're like, why are we not any closer?
Right. And that's what we do, right? Is that to the public, we were flawless, right? And I love that, but really the best judge isn't my mom, right?
Yeah.
If we look good out there, sorry, mom, because I'm sure she'll like wait. But the best judge isn't somebody who doesn't do this every day, right? She's a commercial artist. I would never mess with her art. But we want to be able to judge ourselves, and part of that is there's a little decompression there. There's some times where we'll find things that happen to us, but I do want our people to decompress. It is a big worry. Behavioral health is a major issue in the fire service, and in today's world, and I know that people that retired 30 years ago it was hard for them, and it was hard for them. They had different struggles than us. I think cumulative call volume on our people is a big deal. And the fact that we are really going from a tragic medical call to a fire alarm, back to another tragic medical call, to a fire, to an auto accident. And that cumulative, that quantity and quality of tragedy in people's lives that we're exposed to every day has a real effect.
I think sadly, a lot of times that turns us cold. Like I've never wanted to go home and talk to my wife about my day, right? Like I just didn't want to explain every detail to her because she's a very detail oriented person.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't want to have to explain, well, why do you pull an inch and 3/4? Like I didn't want to, or inch and 8 now. I didn't want to do that, right? So, but some would say our hearts are callous and cold because we see so much trauma. Like now we don't really show emotion. My wife says you're so emotionless. Like you don't show emotion. And I think a lot of that is just deals with job, not just me, but just people within this industry, police and EMS and everything.
Medical, the whole thing. I mean, again, I can't have the person taking care of me or my family falling apart because they're emotional about it. I need them to be somewhat dispassionate so they can be that professional. And if I'm going in the house, I'm dragging a line or I'm doing a search on the number 2 floor, searching bedrooms, if the entire time I'm frightened that I'm going to find somebody, I'm not going to be effective. And you have to compartmentalize it a little bit, which I think is dangerous long term. Yeah. Putting that in a box so that you can do your job effectively. Again, you take USAR. You fly into Haiti and 500,000 people lost their lives. You could spend the entire time wringing your hands and worrying about the families that have lost people, or you can buckle down, compartmentalize that a little bit, and save those that can be saved. And I think that's really where we need to be. It's hard to do, and I'll tell you, it's very hard for some of our newer members who are, everything is visible, everything is social media, everything is part of that.
There's cameras everywhere these days.
And they're exposed to it on the job, off the job. They're seeing their same fire now played from other people's angles, and it's hard, Well, I have one magical ability when I do interviews, like on TV or radio stations. I have never watched my own interview. I've never done it. And that's how I am fearless in going into an interview, because I'm not going to see myself fail on those, right? Yeah. And I don't know if I'm going to watch this one, Patrick, or not. So probably not.
Patrick, you're not watching this back?
Yeah, probably not. No.
Oh, that's okay. I understand your rule. I never used to watch myself on TV either.
But I want to see. I got to see where I messed up and make my corrections.
Well, I'll hear about it. Trust me, I'll hear about it.
I'm sure.
But no, I think the behavioral health part's a big part of it. We're trying to do things as best we can for that. We started a K-9 program to help out with that, and there's some new ways to try out how to best take care of. But I think the number one line of defense in taking care of our people is our own people in the firehouse, and there is a de-stressing there. I mean, people say the fire department eats their own and how hardcore we are at the dinner table and stuff, and I'm like, you watch any group of professionals that perform in extremis, meaning at point of death, right? Fire, police, military, anyone whose decisions together as a group put themselves in a dangerous place, you're going to see the same type of brotherhood, sisterhood. You are. And you identify with it, right? Like I love that part of the job. I love going to the firehouses. I have a firehouse visit this afternoon, and I enjoy being around the dinner table with everyone, and the hammering each other that they do, and that there's a love behind that. I know it doesn't seem like it at times, right? Yeah. But because they go into, and if I can use the term battle, they go into battle together, right? And there's something about that. And I want those teams to be strong, because those strong teams are going to lead to better outcomes for the people we serve. So there's a lot to that, but thanks for scratching the surface on that.
We definitely deep dive for another hour. Yeah. But I do have to ask you a question that was left for you.
Sure.
And actually, I'm gonna let you. So I'll ask you first, then I'll let you ask me a question, and then I'll let you leave a question for the next guest.
Next person, sure.
All right. So the question that was asked to you was, have you ever prejudged someone, whether it's a rookie, a patient, or whatever?
There's this one guy. There's one guy, first name Tim, that I did not think very highly of about putting him in this recruiter position. And no.
I was like, what? Wait.
I know. He didn't even react. I'm like, uh-oh. No, I think during our career, especially in what we do, we have to make judgments very quickly on the fire ground. Whether it is this building, where do I attack this thing? But also on EMS calls, you have to make decisions pretty quickly. And I think when it comes to building our team, developing our crews, we probably are relatively fast in making our decisions. And I think maybe two answers to the question. Yeah, absolutely. I've had people wow me before who were so much better than they gave them credit. But I think the real exciting part is there were people that some people had written off, and I have one particular person in mind who was a battalion chief when I was a division chief. And this one chief was really a low performer, and people had written them off. And I made it my thing to say, hey, I don't want to worry about that battalion every day, right? Like that battalion is my worry. And every time they get a fire, I want to go to it as a division chief, which is not effective, to make sure they got the proper backup. And we worked with this person over and over and over again and got them to where they were really pretty good. And it was really a lack of training, a lack of care, and a lack of engagement by previous division chiefs, and let that person out. So I think, yeah, the prejudging, I think we all do to a point. I've had a lot of people here wow me, just absolutely wow me. And my first impression of them was, oh my God, I don't know how they make it to work every day, right? But then you see them and you realize, hey, they just needed a different approach, a different impression, different type of training. But the fire service is great like that, because it takes all sorts to make up the fire department. And yeah, I have, and I've been pleasantly surprised in most every case. I did have one member threaten me when I first got here about moving transferring him.
Really?
Yeah, I was sitting down. In fact, it's funny, I'm going to his station today for the station visit. But I went and had dinner with every station,
I remember that.
every assignment, just to get to meet people. And one of them, there were two I remember vividly, but this is the one. And the driver leaned across the table, and I said, so how long have you been here? And he said, about 6 years. And I said, oh, wow, you looking for a different assignment, something new, something different, faster, slower? I was just being conversational. He goes, Chief, I swear to God, if you move me, I will hurt you. And I didn't know the guy. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
We got some bold people to work here. That is first conversation with the new chief.
The guy has been so nice to me in my career, and always comes over. He works at the stadium. Always comes over when we have season tickets.
Oh, I know exactly who you're talking about. That's hilarious.
Always comes over, sits with us. Couldn't be tighter. I've spoken at one of his family's some child development event, like father-son development event. And I've spoken at his wife is a teacher. I read books at her school. I couldn't be tighter with him. Love hanging out with him and all. But that is the first impression my man made on me. Wow. And he was kidding. I couldn't tell.
Oh, wow.
And I remember his captain looking, and he looked appalled. He was like, oh, and he looked at me and he goes, sorry about that. Listen, he likes working here. And I'm like, yeah. So the other person that really got my attention asked if I wanted to go to the basement and see his carvings. I was frightened of that. And did not go to the basement.
Was it woodworker?
Yeah. Okay. Well, apparently he really did carvings. It just sounded like some sort of weird thing that I stayed away from, because again, firehouse fun, I didn't know what that meant, and I was like, I think I'm going to stay up here. So
you never know.
No, it takes all types to do what we do, and no, very blessed to be here. It's a great department. We do great work for the people. We have great people that work here, and we're building it better every day. And I think the podcast stuff like this, the recruitment that you're doing, I think are major parts of that, because we need great people to continue this legacy. And this department has an incredible legacy, 150-some years strong and still going. And the call volumes go up every single year, 34,000 last year. And we ran about 60, I'm going to spitball this, I think it's around 65,000 vehicle responses. That means 65,000 times someone left a firehouse to go help people. That's an amazing amount of responses by this department. And so we need good people, we need good apparatus, we need good stations, and I think we're making that better every day.
What better place to be than in Durham? All right, what question do you want to leave for the next guest?
It's funny, I thought about this, and I really couldn't come up with anything great. I think more legacy stuff is where I was heading is, if you could give that advice to you. So if I could go back and see Bobby Z in recruit in the academy, back in the 87th Recruit Academy was mine, right? And if I could go back and speak to me, what advice would I give myself? And there's a bunch of things that I could think of now of, stop and smelling the roses a little bit in the career and enjoying the ranks as you move up. And, there's so much to this job. And one of the parts I talk about at the recruit school graduation is that this job shows you everything that life has to offer. Incredible highs and difficult lows, seeing babies born and lives lost. And because of it, if you engage in it at a really high level, you'll have the fullest life there is. It is such a great occupation. There's a bunch of great occupations out there. Obviously, I'm slightly biased, but you see people at the rawest and at their best.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it is such a rewarding career. And if you do it well, you can be a great dad, you can be a great husband, you can be a great provider, and again, you can be a great mom and a great wife too. For me, you got to work at it a little bit, but this job allows you to do so many great things. I've had so many opportunities. I was a mayor of a little town, back in Virginia, and I wouldn't have gotten to do that in a regular job. The job allowed me time to do these great things, and I've been so blessed with this career because the fire service is a great calling. And I encourage everyone. We're hiring all the time, so come on out.
Great career, great schedule. We have the best schedule, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fire service schedule.
My schedule sucks. Yeah, I work a 5-2.
Days
sort of
off.
a 6-1.
You really can't have any days off when you're the big.
No, and I like
you're a big
that.
person.
I like that.
So your question is just, what would your older self tell your younger self in this career?
Specifically in the academy.
Academy.
What advice would you give yourself when you first started this job? I'd love to know that because, I try to reflect on that, of what would I do differently? What would I see differently? What would I engage in? Would I take this training or not? Would I do this or not? Or, because none of our paths are perfect. There's hurdles and there's pitfalls and we fall down and all that. I think the fire service rewards you when you get back up. We have a lot of second chances and other options to do things. And, if this station doesn't work for you, there's other stations and so forth. And
I agree.
Pass that one on. I like that one.
I agree, and I agree with the department. City of Durham. They don't just, if you get hurt, you get injured, you have some health issues, they don't just discard you. This is a career. We support each other as a family, brother.
We try really hard
brother and sisterhood.
To allow people time to recover. Mm-hmm. We're aggressive on how we use our light duty, and we use it in ways that no other department I know of uses it. We put some people back on 24s. Yeah. It's a little more comfortable for them, but also we're trying to get more work done, right? More service out of them, and if they can be more comfortable and we can get better service, we should do it. So
nice,
good stuff.
Patrick, you got anything, man?
Yeah, I've got a couple things. I'll do some put a bow on it and do some window dressing here. No. Anybody that's listening or watching, we appreciate you. We want to grow this, so I'll take care of my piece real quick. The best way you guys can help us out here is if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to us there. If you're listening on your favorite podcast app, give us a follow, give us a listen, and then third. Follow us on our social medias. That's Durham City Fire on Instagram, Durham Fire Department on Facebook. You've got Tim's accounts back there, his recruiting. So if you want to work here, go and join Durham FD, right? Join Durham FD, Facebook and Instagram.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and give them a follow. And again, thank you guys for listening, Chief Z. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here. And Tim, I'll take it back to you to take us out.
Yeah, so Chief, I appreciate you again.
Absolutely,
thank you for coming out. Thank you for being the first guest. Like Patrick said, follow, subscribe. We appreciate you guys. If you have any comments, concerns, anything, send it to us. Next episode, we will answer it. And you've been watching Bull City Bravest podcast. Until next time, I'll holler at you.